Just a quick video of the layout of these. So you want your first rail 11 inches from the end of this bracket. This is the rear. Center of your first bracket is going to be 2 3/4. And to the center of this one is 75 1/2. You'll next want to lay out all your cross members, starting with this one. See, it's got the little feet. It's an exact mirror image. All the brackets are the same, so no matter which way you flip it, it sits the exact same. Next one from the rear is this one with your sliders and your bumpers on. Third one from the front is this one. You can tell that because it's got a double set of bolts here to accept that bracket. And the last one is the same as this one, but it just doesn't have bolts in the front because it doesn't attach to this main beam. So just to recap, you're only bolting the first one and the third one from the back. These two float with the sidebars. Now that you've got these bolts underneath here, just mocked up, nothing tight, but the nuts and washers on, you want to center this between the two brackets. In this case, have about 7 3/8 on either side, and you'll have to do the same thing with the third one from the rear. Center it and bolt it into place, and then tighten everything up once it's centered. You can now bolt that hollow section on. It'll line up. There's holes pre-drilled in it already. One there. That'll line up with this one. So the holes are pretty much dictated for you. This is the third one, bolted down there onto this. That one floats. So now we're just going to go around and repeat the other side with this. Don't tighten these down because we will need to slide these stiffening rails onto these with the nuts on. And you'll notice these two nuts on the back are going to sit lower because the bolt is quite a bit longer to allow for the thickness of this. And then this one protrudes into a hole here. There it goes, and it'll poke through, and that keeps it from sliding out, as well as when you cinch all these bolts up. Once this rail is in place, tighten this one first, line it up to that hole, and the bolt will poke through, and then cinch the remainders up. Repeat it on both sides. Now you'll want to knock the plastic cap off of the end that does not have the hole in it. You can see that one has a hole. It's going to line up with this longer bolt here that pokes through just to seat it into place. Once you get that end cap knocked off, you're going to see that there's a deep and a shallow side to the center. You're going to want that deep side up, and it's going to go around your bolts. You might have to push them up, but it's going to fit into that track. Don't tighten any of the bolts up. You might notice that you might have to spin some of these nuts. The side face has got to be 90 with that slot, or they won't slide past the bolt. They'll get hung up. So you gotta wiggle the bolts a little bit to get it to go. There you go. And then it slides past. Just keep doing that until you get it fed all the way to the front. Start tightening on this back bolt first. You'll be able to index it into that hole once you get it through a little ways. And if you get it lined up right, you should be able to tighten that all the way down. Then just tighten up the rest of them and repeat the same thing on the other side. For the passenger side, there's two of these. This one this way, and this one goes on the driver's side. That one goes on the passenger side. You can see the angles towards the front. You want that sticking towards the front of the vehicle. The orientation for these is you're going to want them to end up sitting like that. They do swivel on there, but they're all loose. And this does move back and forth to give you some adjustment. These will have to be slid in the end of this track, the bolts, and either slid from the front or the rear, depending where they sit. So we're going to slide this one in from the front. So that's that part installed. It's loose, leave it loose. It's just resting on this right now. And you want this loose, so you can line this up with the other two when you slide the bar in, which is what we're going to do next. You repeat this process on the other side, but again, leave it loose. It makes it easier to slide that big long bar through. The positioning from the front isn't critical because it is adjustable. Once we get that bar in, we can set it. So there you can see we have this one slid in from the end. The bolt head's in this track. It's still loose. It's just resting up there. And we're going to slide the tube in underneath these two rungs and then line it up into those holes. Once you slip it through this and the two front ones on the driver's side, you can undo this bolt right here. And this will go through that bracket and bolt in that hole. Undo these bolts so that you can pivot these pieces around and then reinstall the bolts in the holes on this main shaft. Reinstall these bolts in those holes and tighten. Once you've got those bolts reinstalled, you can attach that bracket underneath there with that bolt and this bracket underneath here to those two bolts. Tighten the front face of this up first. The center of the 8-foot step ladder forward hook 59 1/8 to center of that bracket from the end of that top rail. The other side, from the same spot, will be 81 5/8 to the center of that bracket on that side. They might need some slight adjustment, but that's a pretty good starting point. Before doing up this rear bracket with the 2 bolts, take out this one and slide that bracket past so you can catch the outside of the ladder rung. And that bolt is on the right side. Otherwise you'll have to take this all apart to move that bolt where you're going to need it. Once you have your 2 sides all snugged up, all your bolts tightened, as well as these ones, you want to go ahead and install these pieces. Come with 2 little bushings on the ends. First thing you have to do though is slide them onto these brackets. There's a track in the bottom of them, so you want to slide that onto that groove, and then the other end with your bushings will be bolted up to the 2 stainless pieces. Once you get it all together, it should look something like this. And you want to just snug it up and then back it off just slightly, because you want this piece to be able to move freely. And then once you have this snugged in, you want to make sure that that arm's square with the roof. And then once you square it up by moving it left or right, you snug up those 2 back bolts, tighten those down. Once you have this part completed and everything's tight or snugged up where it needs to be, we're gonna slip these nuts into those slots, and it will sit something like that once it's all installed. You just slip the nuts in loose and then tighten up the bolts once everything's in there. You got to fiddle around with it to get those in again. Once you've completed that, it's the same for the other side. Next we're going to install these are both the same, the only difference being the way the nuts sit up or down. They're mirror image, so I put these nuts down, so this one will be for the other side, and there's another one here for this side. And you can bolt those on the end. Try and keep them like 90 degrees to that main shaft. There is a little bit of wiggle room on, and yeah, same on that side. So that's roughly what that looks like. This is one of the reasons why we shifted this main one back from 8 inches of overhang, where it comes factory, to 11 inches from there to the end of that tab, is because if you don't have enough clearance for your handle to swing, and you can't adjust that back and forth. That's dictated by these holes. So the only way to do that is by shifting everything backwards. So it's just easier to do that right off the jump. Yeah. Next, we're going to be installing this stainless steel Techno Fab end plate. the head. This is what latches the handle into place and holds it. Also gives you somewhere to lock it. Yeah, it slides into the slot in the end here, and its position back and forth is determined by where the handle sits when it's latched. So get it snugged up once the nuts are in, and latch the handle into place, and make sure that the handle's sitting 90 degrees or parallel to these main bars. But it's pretty easy to just take a tape out and measure. And that's what that should look like. And once you're done, the handle should latch, rotate, and on the moving parts you might need to tweak a few of the pivots, loosen them, tighten them. I tend to stay away from lubrication on these. Everything that rotates does have a plastic bushing for the most part. As soon as you start putting WD-40 or any kind of oil in there, it just collects dust, and then it turns to sandpaper and just packs up. Ends up being worse than nothing. So yeah, same for the other side. Repeat that. Okay, we're mounting the step ladder. There's a couple things I do first here. We already slid that bolt past. If you haven't done it already, you're going to need to do it. For that one arm, we'll actually be taking that off and rotating it. We might need to adjust the front of that. The extension ladder is pretty easy. I just undo this bracket for now. That holds the ladder from sliding out on you that way. And I also undo the bracket at the front, just to allow a little bit of wiggle room back and forth. Once you get the ladder up, you can snug the rung back against this rubber stop, and then as soon as it hits there, adjust that front up tight to the next rung. And then, yeah, once you slide the ladder tight against this side, you'll want to pull this over and retighten it into place so it actually pushes the ladder tight into this. So once you get the ladder hooked up, you want to hook the bottom rubber padded arms there. You want to hook those in the same one as these adjustment arms on the extension ladder. Yeah, once you get it in, you want to pull it tight to the side. Make sure she's snug. That should be tight against your rung there. And then you can slide this to where it fits square. Tighten that up. And then adjust your front. Once you have the back tightened down and you're sure that the extension ladder is pushed back against that rung, that way it can't jostle back and forth, you can come and adjust this so it just pushes against that bottom rung. Tighten it up. All these things being rubber might need minor adjustments. They might be a little tight to fall into place the first few times, just because that rubber is a little sticky. After a while it'll smoothen up, and yeah, you'll find things will drop into place a lot easier. So there's the extension ladder all mounted, secured, ready to go. I usually take a Sharpie and mark the edges of that in a couple of spots, just as the ladder's getting on and off, to make sure it gets back in the right spot. That way you don't have too much protruding out the back. You don't have to worry about punching it through a window or into an overhead door. Just seems to be a good spot for it. This extension ladder, in the instructions, they tell you to flip this part upside down and just leave it in place. Basically omit it. They tell you to leave this arm on this side. We moved that over previously, and I'll show you why in a second. I just find the way they tell you in the instructions, there's nothing really to hold the ladder in one direction, no matter which way you configure it. So what I've done is I've utilized this one, not turned it upside down so it's not doing anything, but actually utilize it to hold against a rung. And this one on this side, you actually take and rotate to hold the ladder from shifting back and forth. And then with it being hooked on a rung on the back here, it can't go anywhere. Can't go forward, backward. Yeah. So we'll just undo, loosen all that stuff, and we'll mount the extension ladder, or the step ladder, sorry. When you get the front adjusted and the rear adjusted to hit that, and this side up against, everything should work tickety-boo. Hold it down. And that's up. So that's it installed. Hope that helps somebody out.